Drink till breakfast.
Until breakfast. Okay, everybody raise your glass because this is Saturday Night Live Deep Dive, episode number 6, live, coming from you, to you, from all over the planet, but mostly the United States. Tonight we are going to speak about all the great times we've been fired and the benefits or negatives about that. We will also discuss other things that have happened this week, possibly if we can remember what they are. But tonight we have our good friends Amy Lewis, Jeremiah Dooley, Josh Cohen. Oops, no, Josh. Well.
Oh. Quick, mute him.
If I
Jim Millard and Mom Jeans. So, I'm in everyone at will.
Man.
Oh, boy.
We need to find out which one of those two is taller at VMworld.
Oh no, I'm taller.
He's taller.
Jeremiah, this is your
Mom Jeans has gone crazy.
dude.
Hey,
Really?
hey, Tim, don't click all of the buttons. I swear to God, you're never getting in my car.
Never again.
So Gabe,
Yes,
back
sir.
on track. Let's
Yeah.
have some definitions of fired, because I'm
Well-
one of those guys that's one of those serial riff survivors. And so the only time I've been fired, I was in high school working at Baskin Robbins. So that doesn't really count. But I have been a riff survivor and had many, many friends let go just because they happen to be in somebody's balance sheet. And that's a different type of firing than, call it the resume generating act,
Right.
which is a different type of firing. And then you've got the kind where it's political, where you did your job well, and some douchebag had to choose. And he
Never
chose.
happens.
Well, right, because if you think about it, I mean, how many times have we been in the position where, I mean, let's talk about that one. How many times have we been in a position where a new CIO, a new director's come in and decided to clean house and bring in his own people? I mean, that happens in pretty much every industry, especially in the sports industry. When you think about it, if a new head coach comes in, he's basically going to bring his people in with him. And you could look at a C-level or, a director-level person that's kind of at the same level, where they're going to come in and basically kind of like, stock the shelves with their premium brands. There's that aspect to it. I mean, definitions of getting fired, you screwed up, you did something stupid, you pissed the wrong person off, you just weren't good at your job. I mean, those are kind of like the four big ones, the reason people normally get let go. I don't necessarily consider, so reduction in force is kind of an interesting one because I tend to see that as laid off instead of being fired. But, obviously the person that happens to see it in a different light. If you get fired from your job, I actually don't think you can collect unemployment. So that's an interesting one. At least here in California, maybe there's some weird rule somewhere else that allows you to do it. Wow, this is a really hot topic. Nobody wants to talk. I will tell you the story. The first time I was ever fired, I was 16. I worked at Cinnabon. I was a smart-ass. What else is new?
No.
Something
Nothing has
ever changed?
The only thing that's changed from that period and now is that, I'm older.
There's a sticky buns joke in there.
Yeah.
I'll let somebody else go.
But, so,
Is it 5 sticky buns?
there's at least 5 sticky buns in the episode.
Those aren't pillows.
In my particular instance, it was Christmas time, and the mall is always a chaotic place during the Christmas season where, you get temporary workers to come in and do stuff. It wasn't like a job I really wanted to do. It just kind of had to be a job. And, when you're 15 or 16, anything that's gainful employment is beneficial to you. It was a good experience traditionally. But a rather large woman came by to order some Cinnabons. And they're like 1,200 calories each. And if you order...
And that's just if you look at them.
Really, I mean, it's like a day's worth of food in each one of those Cinnabons. And she ordered half a dozen, which is kind of, they come in a box, it's half a dozen. And I'm like, all right, I'll box this up to go. And she's like, oh, no, I'll have this for here. And I never heard anybody say that I would have any more than one for here unless it was more than one person. And I was like, whoa, just kind of thrown back for a minute. And I'm like, all right, well then, cool, I'll get you a half a dozen. I will get you essentially enough food to feed an Ethiopian village. Would you like something to drink with that? And she's like, I'll take a large diet soda. And I literally looked at her and said, do you think the diet's really going to matter? And it appeared my boss basically said, you're fired. And it was like, you know, I really didn't care, but it was also kind of a good lesson in, you know, being a non-douche.
Filtering?
Phrasing! So that was the first time that I was ever fired. And, you know, I've had positions in the course of the technology here, either A, from the fact that the company was not doing well, they had to reduce force, you know, just was kind of checked out, and it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I really think any time that I have left a company, it was, you know, and I probably had a good half dozen jobs in IT, but it was always a benefit to go someplace else. You know, either it was more money, it was better position, it was something more interesting, it was a step up or a parallel shift. It just really, you know, I'm talking too much. You're supposed to speak.
Yeah. So I'll jump in and say that I've been fortunate enough that I have not been fired yet. I hope to keep that track record going for quite a while. But
You're young. It'll happen.
But what I was going to say is that looking back, I was trying to find that moment where maybe I got fired, and I have noticed that I have left companies on my own accord at a fortuitous time ahead of a lot of people getting fired. I've done that multiple times. So maybe, yeah, maybe it's a smart move to follow me out. I don't know, but yeah, I've been fortunate in that regard. I've heard a lot of bad things about people getting let go in IT and other departments after I left. I'm sure it was because people were heartbroken by my departure.
Well, usually when the ginger quota is unfulfilled, bad things happen.
Mm-hmm. I take my Lucky Charms with me everywhere I go.
So it's not exactly a firing, but a similar situation of my very first big girl job. I went on my very first ever conference event, and when I worked for a computer book publishing company. When I was on the show floor, we called in to see how things were going at the mothership, and they said, we've been acquired, they're shutting us down, give away all the merchandise and come home. And
Awesome.
I was to pay for shipping.
I was 23, I had a mortgage, and that was the oh shit moment of my life. And I think it's actually, when you talked about when is it a positive, it's shaped the entire way I've managed my career, because once that's happened, that's your worst nightmare. And pretty much, it's already happened. It happened young, and so I'm always ready to be fired.
Yeah, you know, that's something. I mean, it's something I take to heart as well. You know, what is it? Maybe it's just me, but every time I feel like, you know, you get that, hey, give me a call when you get some free time from your boss. In the back of my mind, I'm always like, hey, I'm getting fired. Man, that's gonna suck. And you know, I don't know what it is, but it just seems like, and it's not like I'm screwing up or anything. It's just in the back of my mind. Maybe the pessimism of my nature is that, you know, normally when your boss says, hey, give me a call, you know, it can be like, it's usually not, hey, bomb, and we love you. It's usually like they want to, like, you know, jump on your shit about something. So, you know, I've had a few of those calls where it's been like, yeah, you know, things aren't working out. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, every time they call, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna wait, see how that plays out.
I just think that's the reality of modern business, is nobody's job is 100% secure. So I think that means live your life clean in some ways. It means the company you insult today may be the one you need to work for tomorrow.
Right.
And again, act as if you're always going to be fired. So my motto is I'm either going to get promoted or fired, and I behave accordingly.
You're fired.
I think we had that conversation on the road trip this week, Amy.
Yes.
That's generally the philosophy I work on. Piss everybody off, shake shit up, either get fired or promoted. I haven't been fired yet, so I haven't figured it out.
Well, haven't you worked in the same place all of your life?
No.
So the one place that I got fired from, I was working at a Baskin-Robbins back when I was 17, and the situation that got me fired, I was working the counter. It was a summer afternoon. We had a shit ton of people, they want their ice cream. And as part of that, the owner of the franchise needed a bunch of ice cream sandwiches ready for a block party. And while they were all prepped, that's fine. He shows up, and he brings a cooler with some dry ice and says, "Fill it now, I need to go." And I've got a line of 15 people. I'm there by myself, and I'm like, I got customers. And he said, "No, fill it now." And so fine. So I took his cooler, went onto the back, and I just, shoved all these things into the cooler, however I could get them to fit. No rhyme or reason. Didn't even try and organize, flavors or any of that kind of crap. And I just shoved that out and said, "Here." And I went back to servicing the customers. And I got a call after my shift was over from my manager saying, "Don't come back. The owner doesn't want you back." So I called the owner and I said, "I'd like an appointment to talk to you about this because I feel like you were actually in the wrong and I was in the right." And he accepted the appointment. I went and I talked to him, and I said, "Look, you were there. You saw it. I had 15 people there that needed to be serviced before you, and you just came in and you forced me to drop everything. They didn't understand who you were, why I was having to drop the whole shooting match." And he basically did a lot of nodding, and I figured, okay, I spoke my piece. I'm done with this. I'll go find another job. I get a call from the manager later that night saying, "You moved him, you're back, and not only that, you need to be my assistant manager." So that whole thing of it's customer first, because that's actually where we get our money from, that started for me at a very young age, and it served me well. And it was one of those pieces where, yeah, I got fired technically, but I also got rehired back to the same company and at a bigger, better position. So
that doesn't count.
When
you call the owner as being a douchebag, and he says, "Okay, yeah, I was a douchebag."
That's like the firing humble brag, though. That's like, "Oh, look, I got fired, but I'm still better than all of you."
You're right. It is a humble brag.
But I think it also says
that's fine.
I think it may also say that we work in IT because none of us could survive in the service industry.
Yeah, I worked at McDonald's for one day.
Speak for yourself. I bartended for like 6 years.
I was going to say, I've worked in bars, and I know how to treat service people very well because of that.
I loved working tables.
Amen.
I worked in a Mexican restaurant for like 3 years.
Take care of them, they take good care of you.
Yeah, I left medicine because I was not a people person. My bedside manner left a lot to be desired.
It's hard to believe.
Pathology. Go into pathology. Either that or forensics. Bedside manager for a corpse is non-necessary.
A quick corpse story. There's nothing more fun.
He has one. That's the best part.
That's the best part.
There's nothing more fun than taking somebody and taking a corpse down to the morgue, and it's somebody's first time because they're always like terrified as shit. And the best part is when you're doing this and you got this newbie, and bodies when they pass, especially if they've been sitting for a little bit, they gather gas and stuff like that. And I'll never forget the time like this kid, right? I mean, like literally 18 years old, like never even seen a dead body before, and we're wheeling the body down to the morgue at the hospital there, and it goes, and it just lets up this like gas thing out of it. And I swear to God, it was like a scene out of a zombie movie. That kid literally looked at me, ran, and I don't think I saw him for another like 2 hours. It was just the best. I mean, you can't plan a prank that well.
All you need is a gaseous body. Thanks, Gabe.
Hey, you know what? You learn a little something every time. Anyway, back on track. But no, I mean, back to Jim's point in his story, I think there's nothing wrong with standing up for your principles and the way you see things, and your personal fortitude, or whatever you want to call that. A lot of people are really afraid to speak up, and we're also afraid of, it's like if you tell, you speak back to the boss, or you come back to me. It doesn't matter if it's like the most eloquent and respectful way. In the back of your mind, I think you're still always thinking, it's like, if I say anything back to them, I'm going to get canned. And it's not so much always the way in IT, but there's other positions in other industries where you really cannot even question your boss at your level. And that's kind of a shame. I really think there should be a good means to have like an office hours where you step aside in a professional manner and have a discussion and say, hey, this is not working, this does work, these are my thoughts on something. And you may be 100% wrong, and there should be a good give and take point, right?
Well, I want to turn this around. How many people on the call have had to fire someone?
Oh yeah, that's fun.
I don't
I've never had reports, so
I'm still over 500. I have fired more people than I have been fired, so I'm taking that as a win.
That's a good strategy. Yeah, no, it's tough. I'd say the moment the first time I had to fire somebody really stunk because they were older than me, and
Dad, you're no longer going to work here ever again.
Yeah, they took a little offense to that, but I'm sorry.
People to fire. Those are the best people to fire.
I was also like 19 years old.
Oh, well. You have to elaborate on this one. Where were you working?
I was working at a restaurant.
Did they not have enough piece of the flair?
Had you achieved your maximum height by that time?
Yeah, I did. I did that in 7th grade.
We've just hit the root cause. It stopped there.
No, we were talking about how tall you grew.
Yeah, no, I rate that was. I've been the same height since 7th grade. But yeah, so he was just doing a crappy job, and I had to let him go, and he was very, very sad about it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm going to check with such and such." I'm like, "She told me to come fire you, so best of luck with that one." Best of luck. Yeah, it kind of sucked though. I got over it, and then I had no problems after that firing people.
What was that movie, the air up there, where super dude just for
Up in the air.
up in the air.
Yeah.
One, if I ever hit 100 or 1,000,000 air miles, I definitely want that dude from Deadwood or the mustache guy to come sit next to me on the airplane.
Sam Elliott?
He's got the best voice for that shit. Honestly, if I was an airline, I would hire him out to do that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want him as my pilot.
No, I wouldn't want him as my pilot either, but he could totally come back and hang and sit next to me and give me my, you flew 1,000,000 miles card, and then we could drink scotch.
I just want him to help. I just want him to teach me how to be the bouncer at a bar.
He does have that.
I want to know how to roundhouse kick somebody.
Right, so I can do that rip the throat out thing.
Oh, was that, which movie was that? Was that
Roadhouse. What do you mean, what movie was that?
Do I look like a Patrick Swayze fan?
You're fired.
Outside of Red Dawn and
Dirty
Dancing. The original Red Dawn, by the way.
Yeah, no, the original. I'm like, I can't believe they fucking remade that movie. All right, I guess Patrick Swayze has to.
So
the SNL
back to that other question. Back to that other question about him. Hang on.
SNL Chippendales thing.
Cheese and rice. What was that now? I'm confused.
The SNL Chippendales bit with Patrick Swayze.
Yes.
And Chris Farley.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Millard, back to you, sir.
Okay, so you asked the question about people having to do the firings. How many people have had to do the firings because they actually had a supervisor that was too much of a
puss,
chicken shit, puss, whatever, to do it him or herself, and they
Well, that was
pawned it off on
was
you
me.
in order for you to keep your job.
So flip it around. I actually had a manager once who would not let me fly back into town in order to fire somebody who needed to be fired because he wanted to do it instead, and that struck me as a little creepy.
He must have really not liked that person.
Yeah,
I'm linking the bookends here. I got Amy with devil horns and Jeremiah with the halo. Kind of a nice effect.
Yeah, thank you for interrupting the flow.
Thanks for commenting on what all can see.
Chode boy. Thank you.
I bet your work conference calls are fun.
So I had to fire somebody, the same person, twice, because
So you didn't learn the first time?
I fired her once, and I don't think she thought I would say anything if she just kept showing up, because that's how much she needed firing.
That's a Red State Fair incident.
But yeah, that's Milton.
Yeah. I haven't been receiving my paycheck, and I called accounting, and they needed to talk to HR, and I called HR, and I'm going to
It was
catch
like-
the building on
It
fire.
was like Groundhog Day.
We
So I had
took
to
care
have
of the
that
glitch.
question.
Did she show up the next day or a couple of
She did.
days? I mean, how long did it take?
We took care of the glitch.
She showed up like it had never happened, and I think she thought I wouldn't have the guts to just go through it again. I said, was I unclear? This entire position has been eliminated.
So I'm late in joining. So how long has this been going on where nobody has told Amy that she still has dinner in her teeth?
I hadn't noticed
Long
it.
time.
If it's bacon, it's okay.
Yeah.
It just means that it's snack for later.
No, to the left.
So I think I may. On the
just
topic of
curious.
firing people, so I once had to fire a guy because he had put a hub underneath his desk and had routed all of his coworkers' computers through the hub and was running a packet sniffer because he was afraid everybody was talking about him on Instant Messenger.
Oh, that's hard.
Call that resource.
And so and we found out because all of a sudden everybody's IP phones stopped pulling DHCP reservations, and we found this under his desk, and he was legitimately like he thought everybody was talking about him, and for the last 3 weeks had been pulling full packet captures from every PC in the department. And it was one of those ones where it was like I don't believe that I am going to have to fire you for something that is both so ridiculous and so wildly inappropriate all at the same time.
Jeez. Now, I've gotten people fired before. Does that count for fun?
Now,
It depends on why. I mean,
Were they fired when you should have been the one who was fired?
Yeah.
No. They were fired on their own accord. It's just I'm the one that found the firing offense.
Well, hey, one time I was in charge of the Lotus Notes image filter. That is a thankless job.
Oh yeah. Just imagine when I had to learn what.
Ted from the
Ashley
warehouse and John from accounting sure do like each other enough to send specific photos that shall remain nameless.
You've never worked at a law firm, brother. That stuff.
No, I've worked at 3 law firms.
Oh,
and
lawyers are
trust me,
great.
the Christmas party is.
Working and being represented by are two different things, Gabe.
Hey, you know what? I at least have the Atlanta Police Department on my side.
That's true.
I think they just liked your ass.
That still might be one of the top 5 conference stories ever, Gabe.
let's flip that one on its head. How about the situations where somebody needed firing desperately, and because, for instance, you were working in government, and the sinecure was you couldn't fire them unless they came in with a gun.
And even then,
you couldn't fire them. Well, it depended on which particular government agency you were in, whether or not coming in with a gun was a firing offense.
Just plant the gun and be done with it.
So my dad spent 14 years working at the Pentagon and literally would tell stories about people who somehow got their way through the interview process, and once they were in, literally short of
They're
finding
on
a
pension.
Right. Well, and short of finding a 5-star general and kneecapping him, there was nothing that was going to do that was going to get you out of there. And so what they literally had were a whole series of positions that they would promote these people into, because you can't argue with a promotion. They would move them up one scale and literally give them 0 job responsibilities. Like, it would be a job that was designed for incompetent people, because we can't fire you, so we're going to pay you slightly more to get out of everybody's way. Right. Well, welcome to the Department of Defense.
Well, look at
It's like working at Hooli.
Exactly.
You're sitting on the roof. But no, I mean, even then, look at the New York City school districts where they have the rubber rooms, right? Where basically teachers who cannot be fired but are, terrifying to children or whatever reason cannot. They go sit in a room all day and get paid all day. But the thing is, even, I worked at a major international Globo Corp for, 8 years, and we had people that worked in our company that essentially their job was to come to work every day and watch YouTube and work for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And, there are some organizations where the manager enjoys headcount so much that he would never fire anybody, no matter how incompetent they are, and that just builds a corporate culture of significant dysfunction, right? Because there's always a couple other people who have, whatever, the moral fortitude to actually work, and they're doing the work for those persons or people who do not work. And there's nothing that will build resentment or frustration faster than somebody who's doing 2 or 3 people's jobs while 2 or 3 other people do exactly nothing.
Agreed. And then there's always the unfireable people, right? We had a hilarious conversation with the Rackspace guys.
Those people with halos?
We were talking with Ken Hui and Cody Bunch, and at one point I'd asked, what is Cody's job at Rackspace, and his response was to not go to Amazon. which is just like, and Ken's nodding the whole time, where it's pretty much just accepted that Cody is there because not only do they not want to fire him, but they don't want him to voluntarily leave for Amazon. And my goal is to someday be that guy.
My entire goal is to have such job security that I simply can show up and do nothing and still get paid and probably a raise.
And not wear shoes.
Well,
Isn't that what Wozniak's doing for Fusion.io?
He was
He's paid to be here. Well, he's on the board, but he's part of their technical service team or technical evangelist team because they don't want him anywhere else.
I'm pretty sure it's basically just if I look at Woz and his career over the number of years, does he really need to work, and is the stuff that Fusion and I are doing really revolutionary or groundbreaking? He could go work with Cruisewire, and do something around. And he can really go do anything he wanted, right? I don't know if the Fusion thing was, it's not like when A, he needs money, or B, that the technology was so great. It might have just been something as a favor or something he was interested in for a while, but I don't think he has to stay there.
Well, let's be honest. The guy doesn't have to work anywhere ever again, ever.
No,
not at all.
He's Woz.
Yeah.
He could just show up and sign iPads for $100 and retire on that money.
Yeah. My whole goal, kind of along what Jeremiah was talking about, I just want to be the guy that you bring into a room and you talk about your problems a little bit, and I give you an answer. It doesn't even have to be the right one or a good one, but I give you an answer and I walked out with a check. This sounds like a beautiful relationship.
You want to be the pointy-haired consultant.
Yeah.
Amen, brother.
No, I want to be actually good, but yeah.
That's what the VDB's all about.
I'd rather be rich than good any day.
Well, it's not like you do any work anyway, Tim. So.
Yeah, I know, dude. You're at home like 5 days a week.
No, 7. I'm not sure your week is.
So what's wrong with that?
Well, for
Not a
Tim,
damn thing.
nothing at all, dude. That is a spiteful call of jealousy on my part, because I spend all my life on airplanes.
So here's a bigger question. We know the industry we work in. We know, everybody's had their moments. How much does getting fired matter anymore? mean, there's obviously a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, right? The blowtorch and thermonuclear weapons from orbit certainly impacts it, but the big picture, does whether you get laid off or whether you get whether you pick a fight and lose, or whatever the reason is, at this point, does it really matter?
How big can I make the zero? How big can I make the zero? It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, there's always going to be somebody willing to hire you. I mean, other than I think
if you're qualified, there's always going to be somebody willing to hire you.
Yeah, as long as you're still marketable. It's once you lose all credibility and marketability.
Okay, but what is that? I want to know.
No, here's how I gauge it.
So here's what. Okay,
one at a time, children.
Okay, we're all talking.
Hang on. Amy, you've got a great question, and the answer to that is if you have pissed off the wrong people in the wrong companies and blackballing occurs. And I've got anecdotal evidence from Twitter conversations that you can find yourself blackballed and the Federation will not employ you.
Okay, take that one step back. Do you know why the blackballing occurred? That's what I'm saying. Guidance.
You pissed off the wrong guy.
Yeah,
right.
It's
political. It could be as simple as you laughed at his choice of socks that day.
Got
it. People are goofy.
I've been on the blackballing side of things where I have made sure that incompetent managers have not been hired at places that they interviewed.
Well, I mean, we had that discussion this week, right? I mean, there were people we know and respect who point blank came out and said, everybody involved in this specific marketing situation, at some point you're going to need a job, and I promise to make that harder on you. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes it's just a personality issue, right? I mean, sometimes it's just I feel strongly about this topic, you don't align with that topic. The reason for being hired or not hired there doesn't have anything to do with competence, but just has to do with how you overlap with how I feel.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reality to that too, though. It's not every company's corporate culture is the same, and you're always going to find that one company that's like, we want every dick we can find, and then you'll have companies that are like, no, we're kind of like, on the level, or
that's no way to talk about Pure Storage.
So there's also the disconnect between the technical salespeople and the pure salespeople. So if you've got the technical guys that they want to sell the straight story, and here's what our tech can do, and it can't do that, yet you've got sales folks that they're all about making their numbers, and if you don't help that guy or that gal make their numbers that quarter, they're going to shitmouth you from whatever next, and you're going to end up with, because we're all technical
limited options, right? Yeah,
exactly.
But also I too think that it's like, hopefully, here's my naivete. People can see through the bullshit, right? If it's one person causing a stink, and they're spreading the word, this is a small industry, and word gets out.
Not as small as you think.
Well. Ultimately, we're all going to end up working for each other, or work with somebody who's worked with a friend of ours, and hopefully they look at that, or they reach out beyond just the one person who's bad mouthing you, right? Because my first introduction to sales engineering, was a year of pure, horror, right? I started a gig, and 2 months later, the sales rep left, and I was by myself for 9 months.
Yeah, that doesn't suck.
That doesn't suck, and if they don't backfill the position, and like you basically have nothing to do for 9 months, now is it a reflection on me? No, I don't think so. The person was checked out before I came on board, but I would hopefully think that person wouldn't badmouth me or whatever like that, and I wouldn't badmouth that person. I think we all have our own approach to how we want to interact with other people. And there are people we would talk to that are, we can confide in and just rant about. And then there are others, like if you said something, they would spread the word kingdom.
Okay, so another question. A lot of this has been focused on the political part, which sounds like that is front and center the number one way to get fired. How often do you think true incompetence, and we sort of touched on this, but just show of hands, how often does true incompetence get weeded out versus promoted versus, it's just a bad match. That competence isn't there for that role.
And that's the difference between Cisco's and startups.
Yep.
Startups,
Totally
incompetence can stay around for a long time. It really depends. Some organizations, the original team or the core team that have been around, and they may have been the ones that came in early and sacrificed a lot, but they don't have the skill set to take it to the next level. They may stay around much longer than they should.
Yeah, and the other side is somebody hired that person, right? So even if it is pure incompetence, and even if that person absolutely needs to go, there's an equal sign in the middle there, and somebody inside that company is going to take the hit for that. And so despite the hire slow, fire fast mantra, what I've seen is that managers are very hesitant to fire people that they brought in, and by the time it gets above them and someone says this guy needs to be fired, it's usually you usually have two people in the crosshairs there instead of just the original one.
Yep.
This is what it all seems like it's coming back to, is that even this is so political in nature that when people question why the hell do you spend so much time on Twitter, it's all about relationships still, isn't it? So my other question is, Twitter might not be a good place for you if it outs you as a complete douchebag.
Unless douchebag is your brand.
Unless you're the CEO of the company, right?
Right. Unless you wear the shirt that says I'm a douchebag and I'm proud of it, and that's just part of your deal.
Actually, even being the CEO of the company isn't going to protect you at that point. I mean, we've had several high-profile firings or people getting kicked to the curb. You had it happen at GitHub. You had it happen at some insignificant startup that I can't remember, but the guy got canned because he was like beating his girlfriend or whatever it was. I mean, there have been people that have done shitty things, and the repercussions have been huge.
Yep.
Because
even the CEO of Mozilla.
Is that a bad thing?
Oh yeah.
So it depends, right? I think it depends on if you're a guy who beats your girlfriend, obviously if that gets backing out, and there's a judgment thing about that person, and they're a criminal. And so I think they're probably not ready to lead or manage a company. But if you've made let's take the CEO of Mozilla, you made a financial investment, or you donated money to a cause. Do you really should you be fired for that, right? It wasn't like he made a financial investment in the let's liquidate all babies mantra, right?
It wasn't a Pete Rose
let's hit. Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, in Gabe's example, it wasn't exactly a Pete Rose thing. It was a personal choice that he made. It was something that he believed in that was not aligned with the corporate culture of Mozilla, for that specific example. That probably should have come out during the initial assessment of should we bring this guy on, and it didn't. So, again, it maybe should have been one of those chain effects that it maybe he should have stepped down rather than being fired, and then the people that were responsible for bringing him on and not vetting that correct. I'm just doing a lot of hypotheticals, Josh.
Right.
I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying if he doesn't meet the corporate culture, who is in charge of having set the standard for the corporate culture that says this never should have happened in the first place?
Right. Well, don't challenge that. Well, I mean, John Sterling's different, but
no,
I mean,
it's not. It was bad comments that were made behind the scenes that actually got published without him acknowledging it. It was a different type of social media, but it's the same type of thing where you say something and it gets exposed.
Right. So, I wanted to touch on one thing that Jim had mentioned, in the vetting process of bringing this guy on and things like that. One thing that's really important to touch on in this part of our thread is that, more often than not, it's not what you know, but who you know when it comes to getting a job, right? Just like when you talk about how managers who hire somebody and they turn out to be bad, they have a hard time wanting to let them go because now they have to admit a mistake, and some people have issues with that. So even in a situation like that, you have to look at how that person came on, because chances are they came on because somebody knew them. Now, when you look at Sterling, that's, I mean, you're looking at a situation where his private, and actually Jeremiah and I were talking about this on Thursday night. I look at the Sterling situation. If you're a douchebag or you're just a general bad person, then I'm not going to invest my time and energy on you, right, on a personal level. But now, if you're, wait, hold on. If you're that way and you're that way publicly, and it has a negative detriment to the corporation or the organization, that other companies and organizations are investing their livelihood, their capital, their not just time and energy, right? They're investing their business in. There's a different level of responsibility there.
Well, and I think it's not just a different level of responsibility. I think there are jobs where the job description changes everything, right? I mean, if you're the owner of an NBA team, there's your job doesn't stop, where a normal job would stop, and your privacy doesn't start where normal privacy would start. If you're the CEO of Mozilla, you as an individual, and for better or for worse, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but you as an individual and the things that you stand for end up, whether you like it or not, being conflated with the company that you are leading or with the culture that you're building. And at some point, those two things become irreconcilable. And when that happens, the job, you can't do it anymore. You can't be an NBA owner, whether it was a private company or not.
Flip that around. It's, you're supposed to be representing what your job is, or what's important to you, and it's.
But also,
are you going to be able to? You're going to be able to see Elon Musk driving around a Hummer and think he's going to get away with that? I mean, just use that one.
Good part.
Actually, I can see Elon Musk driving around in a Hummer. Electric Humvee. There you go.
But no, right. I mean, they're it's some people are their value is different than others, right? They're if you're the president of the United States, obviously you can't even pick your nose anywhere on the planet because it's going to be a picture. You see it, right? There's just different levels, right? If you're just Joe engineer with an organization, speaking on behalf of the company, you're not recognized, you're not authorized to do something, and you do something stupid, it doesn't have the same high-profile aspect that if you're the CEO and everything you say and do is scrutinized.
Well, I think the difference is also if you're a publicly traded company or not.
Well,
I mean, there are different. There do become different standards, and it's one of those, to kind of what Jeremiah was touching on. You kind of have to sign off on that because you are going to be measured differently.
It's part of the deal. Whether you like it or not, it's part of the deal.
No, it's like I remember hanging out with the CEO at when I was at Emulux, and we're at sales kickoff. It's 2 in the morning. Everybody's been doing their thing. And you know what? Guess what? He's going to go do an interview at 2 a.m. with in Japan. And when you're at that particular level, you are always on. You are always the company.
There is no offer.
Always representing, right? There is no me time. There's no privacy. Everything you say and do is a reflection on the organization you represent. And you accept that, right? That should not be a surprise to anybody, right? Because if you're the CEO, it better be that you understand that every single thing and utterance you say is going to be under scrutiny by someone, and especially your competitors who are going to try and use it against you. Sure. AK, look what happened this week, right? With some poor marketing.
Something happened.
And the response to it was, somewhat. I think it could have been better, but obviously I'm probably the wrong. Yes. Can you hear the dogs? Yeah. Anyway.
Who let the dogs out?
When Rich
dogs in this case.
But no, I think that in some organizations, something like that would get a you're fired. In some others, it's like, all right, what? We'll weather that storm, and way to go, buddy. You brought a lot of hits to the website.
Well, that makes a pretty good segue. Let me throw this one out, though. We've talked about getting fired. We talked about being the firer that had to get rid of somebody who's incompetent. How about hands up for folks that have made what should have been in RGE, and yet you had great management, and they recognized that you did a screw up that you'll never do again, and we'll fix it and we'll move on. But you get to keep your job because you're still a valued member of the team.
Oh yeah.
Every day of my life.
Oh, dude, trust me. I mean, every day is a, you know, I'm terrified that I might have said the wrong thing to a customer. I might have done the wrong thing. The thing is, it was, you know, here's a weaselly thing about it though. Was your intent good? Was your focus pure? And was it done, you know, in line with benefit of the company? And you know, it's not.
Yeah, we're
bad
not laughing
thing.
at someone's Diet Coke. I mean, that's what we're saying.
Right.
It's also
a bad thing to screw up. You know what? People make
Did you
mistakes.
learn from your mistake? Did you learn from your mistake, and will you make it again?
And
If the answer is yes and no, you're awesome.
And a talented manager should actually be able to discern between those things. And beyond that, if you fire everybody who takes chances, your marketing, your engineering, your products will suck. Because you will live inside the safety zone and you will die there.
I'm very much a proponent of do then apologize, right? Because you know, I take chances and risks around certain things, and you know what? If you know, if somebody calls me to carpet on it, I will make my case, and if it's, you know, if it's acceptable to them and the powers that be, then so be it. If it's not, then you know what? Guess what? It's probably not a good fit to begin with, right? But you know, I hope that I make mistakes and I fail in a positive way because I learn from them, and I think we all do, right? I mean, for me, if you, I've had like probably the worst week of my career ever, right? Just through some things that were completely outside of my own, you know, scope of ability to affect. The thing is, learned a whole lot from it, and I learned more in this last week with some things that went sideways or wonky than I'd ever have learned, you know, if things were always going good.
Well, case in point, I got hired full-time at Cisco, and probably they've regretted it ever since, but I got hired full-time because of a QBR where everybody else, we had a simple system where you had to show your KPIs, and they had to be red, yellow, or green. And there was somebody whose program was in trouble, and every single one was green. It could not be more unicorns flying around that room. And then I got up, and everything but one thing was in the red. And I was like, this program is great, but we have problems, and here's what they are. And we need a hard reset because the numbers you were fed before were bullshit. And you need to throw this, torch it, and start fresh. And everybody's like, you know, but again, who cares? I'm going to get promoted or fired. And I got hired because nobody else would say the emperor is buck naked.
Buck.
Sometimes you say that and then you get fired.
And you know what?
If you
I sort of
spend
feel
your
like
entire career like being afraid to be fired and afraid to take chances, you're in the wrong field or in the wrong job.
So here's the thing.
I agree.
And if you're in an organization where telling the emperor he's naked gets you fired, good for you because you need to be gone.
You need to be gone.
So here's a cool question: how many people have gotten fired and didn't expect it? Like not reduction in force, but how many people got kind of blindsided with oh, by the way, yeah. Nobody should be surprised, right? I mean,
no, I think if people are, here's the thing: a lot of people are very hard. They have a hard time being honest with themselves.
Yeah, they're delusional.
Unfortunately, I'm not one of those people. I know exactly what my faults are, and so
we point them out on a daily basis.
Trust me, pass through. Inside jokes, but you know, it's. I hope that people are never blindsided by a firing, and if it does happen, then it's like a crap boss that's got some personal vendetta or something silly like that.
Well, I actually believe in this very simple concept that a friend of mine in licensing taught me years ago of any deal can be made if both sides agree. And it's the most simple thing in the world. So if you're fired because you say things they don't like, or if you want to be fired because you find your management chain incredibly incompetent, or you find your products to be shit, then that's what should happen. You're not in agreement in that contract. That it should be dissolved.
Right. It's not a mutually beneficial agreement, a mutually beneficial situation for the two parties involved, right? And sometimes, I really do think that subconsciously we may do things when we're in a situation like that drive us to either do things that would get us fired. You may not purposely want to do that, but I think even myself, if I'm 100% honest, I've done a few things where I'm like, you know what, I really don't like working here, and maybe I did set up an FTP server with pirated videos on it on the corporate WAN because I really didn't want to work here anymore.
Yeah, I got a fun
Sometimes
story.
not just
knowing you might lose.
That's a pretty terrible way to go to battle, by the way.
Just say the devil made me do it.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't believe
So last year,
Her name is
I had
Amy.
Yeah, there's only one devil here.
Yeah, she makes people do all kinds of crazy stuff.
5 times.
I
in a
know
row.
Josh. I know Josh.
Yeah, I know. We were in the same room. So yeah, last year I submitted my expenses one time, and about 5 minutes after I submitted, my manager calls me, and he says, "Josh, you're usually really good with your expenses. You follow policy and all. I'm trying to understand why you had an employee dinner that was like $120, $130, and that's well over policy." I said,
Were you buying me wine?
No.
Ah, shit.
Yeah, that's I almost quit that day, and so I went and had a nice steak, not the nicest, but I had a nice steak and about 3 or 4 Manhattans and dessert, and by the end of dinner, I didn't want to quit anymore, so there was that. And he's like, okay, I'll let it slide.
If you had those Manhattans in Manhattan, that would easily be justified.
Yeah.
No, but here's the thing though. In Josh's defense, I mean, if I've been on the road for 4.5 days or 5 days, every now and then, you know what? And the fact that I might not have had a chance to eat for 2 days or whatever it is, that's where having a good rapport with your manager, your direct report, or person who signs your expense report is like, hey, you know what, dude? I felt like I'd done above and beyond, and I was going to have a damn steak, and it was going to be a good steak, and it wasn't going to be like steakem. Right.
Well,
It wasn't going to be an Applebee's steak.
what is your policy on that? Hold on a second. I actually want to solicit a response on this because a friend of mine is a sales rep, and his take on it.
Gotten to my point yet.
Sorry, Joshua.
Oh yeah, we did hijack your thing.
I just want to talk about steak.
No,
no,
my point wasn't about deserving the steak or all. The point was the follow-on to that part of the conversation was, don't make this a habit. And my response was, if I feel that this is going to start being a habit, we're going to be having a completely different conversation. Right? That we need to Amy's point, start renegotiating whether or not this is a mutually beneficial relationship, because the whole expenses and compliance, I'm not even going to go down that road. But it was one of those, it's like, don't worry, this is definitely not going to be a trend.
If breakfast is a $99 expense, all right, come on. Treat the money that you're spending as if it was your own. I think that's always the rule that I've always kind of followed, and many others. And every now and then, it's a blue moon, and I'm like, I'm going to treat myself right. I don't think
I do that with my own money.
Exactly.
When you're in development, it is your own money.
Mom,
So
Jim,
go ahead, Sam.
you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask what's everybody's what is your our formal policy on that? So one of my friends is a sales rep, and his on travel with steaks, with shit like that. His take is, listen, if I'm a borderline alcoholic and I drink 2 drinks every night when I go home and I have a steak,
2?
they're taking me away from my family and asking me to be on the road then I shouldn't be forced to change my lifestyle and have to pay for it. So he expenses everything. But
Two is not trying hard enough. Two is friggin' noob level.
I'm just simply saying.
It's got to be 2++.
Any $14 expense account at an airport is essentially a big beer.
Yes.
I was painting a picture, but I'm like, what is your standard on that?
I just travel with my own bottle.
They frown upon that at the airport.
So more of the serious answer to that question is that everything's negotiable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is you're going to spend the company's money like you would have spent your own. They are asking you to be away from your family, from your home, from your bed, and if the way that you normally spend your paycheck at home is ribeyes and pappy, then when you decide to do that when you're on your per diem, by God, that's justifiable. The flip side, though, is that if you're always eating salads and drinking water, and you go out and you're spending the same kind of money that the guy doing ribeyes and pappy is, it's kind of hard to justify that. But the flip side to it, you might have standard policies that say that this is what your per diem is, and okay, so you go 3 or 4 days without going close to it, you ought to be able to balance out over the course of the entire trip and say, okay, I'm going to have that $150 meal because for the entire expense report, yes, one big dinner, but on overall, I have met my per diem.
I understand what you're saying, Jim. The problem that you're using is that logic doesn't apply here.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're absolutely right.
I mean, there's an expense report baseline, right? And there's the don't be a douchebag rule, right? I mean, there's the spirit of the law for what expenses are supposed to be, and that's going to completely depend on your employer and where they are in their position. The reality is, and I would have no personal experience with this whatsoever, but they can fire you for anything, anytime they want to, right? I mean, it doesn't matter.
We all work in at-will employment states for the most part.
So
right?
if you're gonna have a nice steak and some wine at home, and then you're gonna go out on the road and do the same thing, you don't need to go out to a high-end restaurant to necessarily do that. If you're gonna spend the money at home, you can spend the money on the road as well. I mean, that's my take on it. I'm
kind of.
Andy,
So here's the problem as far as the expenses goes, right?
Josh.
It's not always a people thing, right? Because a lot of these expense systems have flagging, right? They're like, oh, this is uncouth behavior, and a certain number of flags is going to get another level of flags. I mean, it's, unfortunately, I'm with you in a big respect, Jim, that, if you're showing due diligence and responsibility over a period of time, then, okay, I think that can be, stays off the radar, if you will. So my take's always been, I try not to be on the radar any more than I have to, and if I think I'm going to get a ping, I'm going to make sure it's a justifiable ping. And I try to treat myself like a submarine. I don't want to get pinged any more than I have to.
Well, it's back to the concept of contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everything in
it's
moderation.
back to contracts. You're either in a good one where you're mutually agreeable, and the systems you're talking about that tend to provide governance more strictly are bigger companies. So bigger companies have to put some sort of system in place. Yes, it's not usually very logical, but it's because they can't do it at an individual level. So understandable, when it scales out, you get those kinds of weird, non-human interactions with a system. So that might not be the right size company for you if that's a real bothersome thing. I don't know. I sort of feel like if it is an issue, you're not in the right place. It is one of those. I just couldn't. I get that. Like, I could not be in a place where it was that much of a high five. I couldn't do that.
Doesn't it depend on whether or not you're officially a customer-facing role or a non-customer-facing role?
Yeah, I think that plays a big part in it, right? Because if you're customer-facing, like, I've heard the horror stories around, the $24,000 dinner bill, or or alternative location to hang out bill.
Oh, come on! It's the strip club.
Oh no, we're going further than that, Amy. We're going into the bordello area.
But
if you spent $24,000 at the Spearmint Rhino, you obviously did something more than just like get some Cokes and have a lot of people hang out and watch some stuff, right?
Coca-Cola.
That buys you an IQ, doesn't it, Gabe?
It was not me, but I know somebody. I actually know the person that did this, and
His name was Gabriel.
I'm pretty sure the person probably is not on this call right now to defend him.
Not on this call, right? But the thing was,
Him or herself.
there are, and as abhorrent as that might be as a sales tactic, that it does happen on occasion, more overseas than here. But if the deal is big enough, it's kind of like a really expensive dinner. I mean, you hear these stories about the traders and stock market people that go out and spend $275,000 on dinner after a really big deal, and it's like
they make $200 million bonuses.
Right, and so
everything scales.
But just don't forget.
Scalability.
It's rev scale.
I mean, just don't forget, when they want that guy fired, it doesn't matter how much he's sold, and it doesn't matter how much good he's done. Someone will drag that 24,000 completely justifiable dollars up and say, "By the way, you're fired, and this is why." That's what I'm saying.
Even though somebody in the organization approved that expense report,
Called reading exceptions.
Right?
Reading exceptions. That'll do it to you every time.
And here's the pro tip: write in your exceptions when the red flags show up and concur the reasons why. Now you have a tracking mechanism, right?
Yeah, I mean, lawyers love to see that. So yeah.
No.
So that's $24,000 that you spent going out for dinner with customers. If you're going to go out for a really nice dinner for yourself, don't fucking expense it.
You could have bought a reference architecture for that, Gabe.
Or a Dell server.
Or a
nice Dell server.
Fucking awful.
Or a hyper-converged marketing scheme.
Yeah. Just remember, I will do my best to edit this out.
No, you won't.
Good luck with that.
Douchebags.
Well, I think the other thing that calls into play here, what Andy's point was, of if it's a personal expense, if it's truly a personal expense, there's a line. Be reasonable. And
Yeah.
I think the problem is people fall in love with their own publicity. And once you decide, I am Google.
It's me.
Yeah. Once it's I am Google and I'm out of here, like you're too big for your britches. Most people's it's not justified. It's and you're taking that risk. I think once you become that enamored of your own publicity that you think everything's owed to you, you're already in a different kind of state. So you either need to
you become a VDB.
Or a CEO. Like at that point,
even the VDBs are not that VDB.
Yeah,
I mean, here's the thing.
So
I'm notorious for saying
it has nothing to do with position. It has nothing to do with position. It's if you're doing it for yourself, pay for it yourself. Don't expect that somehow your company expects it just owes you this fucking $300 steak dinner. They don't. They give you a salary. They give you whatever other benefits you have. That's what your compensation is. I had a tough day. I need a $300 dinner. Doesn't cut it.
Unless you're Atwell.
Oh no!
Sorry.
And here's the thing. I totally was prepared to pay that gap. Right. It's not in the system for me to say, oh, well, I'm going to cover this much. I was prepared to do it. I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it. But he called and asked, and I said, okay, this is what it was, and that was the point where he could have kicked it back, and guess what? I never did it again. And along those lines, I was out in Colorado just a couple of weeks ago, I looked on the shelf. They have some Pappy Van Winkle 23. I'm out on business, right? I'm out of state traveling. I still pay for that myself,
Bible.
right?
It's in the Bible.
That's
in the Bible.
That's a little bit high end whiskey. I'm not putting that on the company tab.
It just reminds me that of the fact that I drank 2 bottles of Pappy 23 all by myself.
Yeah,
I would hope so.
I still think you're an asshole for that.
Why would
and
you
a baller at
waste
the same time?
Don't waste happy on other people.
I really would not, unless you guys came to my house.
I'm pissed you didn't invite me.
Yeah, he didn't know what he had. He didn't know what he had.
The better part about it, I was giving them for free.
Phrasing.
So I've got a question. I've got a question about the topic. What would someone have to do while getting fired to make it matter, right? I mean, Andy was pretty clear with the fact that it matters not at all. I would posit that there are things that you can do while you're getting fired that would certainly, make any of us, at least take a long, hard look at what's going on over there. Like, are there some? If you're going to get fired, here are the things that you don't want to do at all.
Shit on a desk.
That's kind of a general life rule, though. Like never shit on a desk.
I would. My vote is running your mouth too much.
No, dude, you're already getting fired. What can they do? Fire you?
Right.
Well, no. It's a good point on Josh's that things are circular in this industry. As big as we are, there is some small pieces to it, and running your mouth, that says something about your character. And if I'm working for Company X and they fire me and I am just spouting off nothing but basically shitting on the desk, as it were, then other people are going to see you as, okay, if I hire this guy and for some reason we have to part ways, it's a 50-50 shot on whether or not he's going to shit on the desk again. Do I want to bring that in?
I gotta tell you one thing. That is not a fireable fence at the bank. You can shit on the CEO's desk, and we'll send you to counseling. I kid you not.
We've all seen Employee of the Month. So if you maintain your character, if you maintain who you are, and you're not a complete asshole, then
Gabe.
I'm a 3/4.
Then that's where it doesn't matter.
I am breaking up a rabbit to eat. Little Pete's get fucking decapitated right now.
Dude, do not put Little Pete in your mouth.
Eat its
Phrasing. My children are eating Little Pete right now. There you go.
All right, so
I don't know where to go with that.
I'll touch on that a little bit.
It's real easy. Gabe's eating his Peter.
Just the tip. Just the tip, Gabe.
So Jim, I'm gonna what you said just a little bit more. Like, I have people ask me now, like, why did you leave VCE? And a large part of the reason I left VCE is because I was having trouble finding a role within VCE to do what I wanted to do, right? And I'm pretty transparent in the fact that I feel like I got a lot of stiff arms, but at the same time, I also accept the fact that I can be challenging sometimes. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and I knew it didn't really fit the mold there in a lot of ways, and that the role didn't exist. So I was kind of pushing uphill, and I recognized that. So I don't begrudge them for it per se, but at the same time, I hit a point where I realized that, and I'm like, oh, now I'm going to be willing to look elsewhere, right?
Hey,
so
you know what, Josh? Janitorial services is something that everybody has a role. I'm not pride about, and if it just wasn't working out for you,
you gotta fight bowling.
Hashtag VB.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, it's just like
no, you're right. You're right. Exactly.
I did not stay. And that's VCE's fault. Me leaving is not VCE's fault. Does that make sense?
No.
Had there been an opportunity for me to stay and we could find a mutually beneficial role that would work, I would have happily stayed. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty excited about my new role, and I'm very glad I made the choice that I made. But it is one of those really interesting things. Like I could definitely take a real dickhead stance on it, but what value is that?
Well,
right?
and this is back to complaint is a gift. Firing can be an actual reward. If it's done properly and you maintain your dignity, it gives you the opportunity to show your strength of character and to show your skills. So it is.
Besides, the severance has something to say about it too.
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to find a better match.
Flip a negative to a positive.
Well, and I mean, it's an opportunity for you. I mean, yes, from a work standpoint, sure. I mean, if obviously something wasn't working out, and you're not at that place anymore. But I think it also, there's sometimes hard things are good for you. And when something like that happens, staying on the high road can be a high effort endeavor.
A trip to Colorado.
Yeah.
Well,
but
one other sort of angle on that is the same thing around when people are recruited. So I'm noticing a trend. If people talk about the people who try to recruit them in jobs they don't take and are very public about that, that also can show a problem in your character that I think makes you more difficult for someone to hire you or happily in the future. Yeah. Obviously, you've got such a niche skill set that it is about the technical part and not your personality, but if you do have any part of your job that involves people wanting to work with you and not being a pain in the ass, then when you make choices to either accept or not accept different jobs and make choices about how to talk about that, in some ways that is almost you firing another company. I think how you transition between roles and what you choose is also another huge inflection point in your career.
Yep, I totally agree. I mean, I probably interviewed between February and when I started at Solid Fire, I probably interviewed with 18, 19 different companies, but you don't, talking about who you didn't go to and why, certainly not a good way to build relationships for the future.
So you're at Solid Fire as well?
I am.
We're all going to
congratulations.
Didn't you know that?
No, it's
cool.
David Wright and Adam Carter are stand-up guys. And they have a kick-ass product.
Yeah, I was at Citrus Synergy, and I was telling people how I knew.
When is Data Gravity actually going to come out?
Sooner than you might think.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait.
I am excited.
Looking forward to it.
We should have a happy parade.
No,
the shirt was a mistake. I was simply wearing this today around the house. I was not trying to do anything. Okay.
I'm wearing a shirt with birds on it because I was important.
I'm wearing an OpenStack shirt. That feels like cheating.
Oh, I wore that today when I went to the gym, so we are shirt twins.
Yeah.
No, it's
that way. So speaking of, that was actually an amazing conference, and I would totally here's the commercial for tonight. Go to the OpenStack Summit because dude, I learned more in a 4-day period about an ecosystem of products and people and things that were going on that I learned. Going to a VMworld was like nothing compared to that, right?
And you could have found a job if you wanted one.
Well, that's true too. But the thing is, if you go, I really do think that it's like if you watch the VBAG sessions from OpenStack Summit, those were some of the best brown bag sessions from a technical content. Then anything we not saying bad about. Shut your hole, Damien. Not text while I'm talking.
I'm fucking with Gabe on the side on text.
No, what I'm saying is that was amazing content. I think that there more people got more out of that, and it was amazing because you would have a session from Docker and 40 people would show up in the room, right? That's powerful stuff, and 50 people would watch online. It was just great. So, sorry, tangent.
No, I think it's actually important because we went off on this on the Geek Whispers a little bit, not to do some shameless plugging here, but I think some
But you just did.
which I did. So
What's the name of that podcast, Amy?
let me spell it.
Do you have a URL?
So
The cheese culver people.
the point being is OpenStack.
It's http://
So the point is,
Which slash is it, Damien? How does that go?
I'm going to mute people.
Easy.
Is it this slash or this slash?
I'm muting myself. You mute me all you want.
Let's let the jeans
Go ahead,
lady
Amy.
speak and not
Yes,
Josh.
Amy.
Let
it's
the
your
devil
turn.
woman speak.
No, the person.
So exactly. Did you like how I fell silent and that works? I used my mom eyebrow on you all.
It moves your horns, by the way.
Yeah, it totally does. It was about the technology. The point of OpenStack this time is it leveled out the playing field. A lot of people were starting at a more entry level, and it focused people on the technology. So some of the political bullshit, some of this other stuff gets set aside. And I think people found a lot of energy from it. I certainly was very energized by attending that event as well. And it does tie into what we're talking about, because a lot of again and again, you guys have all said across the board, firing is more political than anything. And if you focus on the technology and leave some of the politics aside, I think we all move forward.
Yeah, my take has always been I treat my ability to be hired, my hireability, right, my market value, kind of the way I do with those credit card applications that they mail to you. As long as I'm getting credit card applications in the mail, I know my credit's doing pretty well. As long as I'm getting recruiters sending me emails and phone calls and LinkedIn invitations and all of that, I know that I'm focusing on the right technologies and I'm
Wow,
engaging
it's
with the right
Josh delusional.
Either that or
What's
your
that?
LinkedIn profile's not very curated.
Right.
Yeah, well, I use all the right keywords.
Bacon and unicycles.
But the point is that now you're hitting opportunities where it's a good litmus test. Are you getting engaged in new trends and new technologies, or are you just hitting expertise in the technologies that you are? Because falling behind can get you fired too.
Yeah. Are you getting engaged, and does your wife know about this?
Literalist.
I'm not wearing my ring right now, but
Okay,
it's very
wait,
clear that
wait.
I am very
For
Will
the
you
married.
be mine? Will you be
For the
mine?
record, for the record, married
Only for
people-
tonight, Andy.
Oh,
married
oh,
people that
man.
don't wear rings, total
After
fucking
I finish this bottle.
fucking
Somebody
bullshit.
has to fill
Married
it.
people that don't wear rings, by the way. That's it.
I'll
That's my
take one
story.
for the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, so OpenStack Summit was a relatively eye-opening experience for me. I'm not quite ready to put OpenStack on my LinkedIn profile.
That's because you discovered that at OpenStack your beard's not big enough.
Your beard, according to OpenStack, is like a fledgling sheep who are learning to fly.
Fleshling.
You don't
my
need
beard
to
is
put-
corporate.
Right, I
Don't
can
need
still
to put
see
it on
your
your profile.
chest.
No, if your beard does not like reach a nipple, and OpenStack of it, you are just like a child.
Yeah,
That's a newbie beard, buddy.
I can't grow a beard. If I grow a beard, 1, I get gray hair. 2, it's red. It makes me look weird. And 3, it looks like JP patches, like patchworked my face.
I think all of your
Did anybody notice that Tim switched from video to his Steve Jobs picture?
Which Tim?
Jaboot.
Oh,
That's not a Steve Jobs picture.
That's the I'm a serious IT guy.
I took
That's-
that
They
picture.
still don't wear
It's
pants.
fantastic.
That's Tim
I hope he gets
turning
a
off
job
his
with
camera.
that picture.
That's Tim turning off his camera so he can make a booze run. by the way.
He literally looks like he's going to stare your ass down and kill you.
Yep.
I know.
He hasn't blinked yet.
I know he hasn't.
No,
he has
hasn't.
knives in those mom jeans.
All right, so the next stage of this conversation, let's take odds on who's going to get fired next.
So it depends on when Gabe decides to publish this thing.
Then everybody's chances go up.
No, but you know what? I really do think. I mean, out of all the discussion we've had over the course of the SNLDD, this has actually been a really good one. I think there was a lot of good information imparted upon this particular discussion. And if all one person that watched this while it was live, hopefully we've imparted some great knowledge onto that person. I've not gone back and looked at the other episodes and seen how if it was just our moms that watched or whatnot, but
My mom
apparently
would not
Amy
be
has.
surprised.
She's probably got metrics on it. She's probably sick Brenda on.
I think we've had like
The fact that
35,
Amy came
40.
and joined us suggests that we're actually doing pretty good.
Agree.
Either that or she was bored and misses us. I mean, after all, she did spend 3 weeks at conferences straight, spending
So I
time
just
with
lost her
at least
voice.
some of us.
Yes, I did just endorse Josh for OpenStack.
Oh, Jesus. He did. He actually did. That's
I'm here.
It's better than competitive dance and competitive
interpretive
bacon
dance.
eating that somebody has endorsed me for. What did you endorse me for, Damien?
Back to dicks.
If I can remember, it's probably not appropriate to put on the record.
Daddy on the back of the card.
Which means it's probably there, though.
It should be. It's like nipple dwarf juggling or something.
You've been endorsed for riding in Atlanta police cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How to pick up a cop in 15 minutes.
How not to walk in the perimeter.
It's been endorsed for how to drink Julie under the goddamn table.
How not to go drink.
That's hard. Never mind. That's difficult.
Yeah, no, it's easy. It's easy, fool. It's easy. I
That's
just
my
did it.
plan. That's
I
my
did
plan.
it just now. It's done. Already done.
So, Amy, I did mean to ask, when they called you when you were at that event and told you to just give everything away, was that them firing you, or did they fire you when you got back?
Well, they tried to shut the company down, but there were still more than 50 employees. They had mangled their process a little bit. So there were still more than 50 employees hired on site, so they couldn't shutter the doors. Mm-hmm. So the plane ticket home still worked, and we got there and we were paid an extreme bonus to not leave that day and to help finish the publishing season. So they had a few books in flight, and then a few people were offered other jobs. From there, it was sort of piecemeal how it was handled. So
Gotcha.
it was pretty eye-opening. It was definitely, like I said, nobody's safe. You're only as good as what you can do for the next company, and don't be a douchebag.
Yeah. So
those are the words to live by. Don't be a douchebag.
Don't be a douchebag.
I mean, so one more really valuable point in this conversation. How many people have put in notice at a job and then got walked because they were going to a competitor? Does anybody find that kind of strange, or is it just me?
We had this conversation this week, Josh.
Yeah, no, I know, but
you would have gotten extra weeks.
It's like a club reference, right? The guy walks out with the computer and all the stuff he's going to take with him, and
Rolodex.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, I have LinkedIn.
So there's the flip side to that, is that if you're not in the sales side, if you're not in the delivery side, if you're a customer, yeah, you give your notice, they frequently walk you out, especially if you're one of the IT people that has the keys to the kingdom. They may trust you implicitly with those keys, but they don't want the next 2 weeks to have something go sideways. So that's essentially, I'm giving you my 2 weeks, and you're taking them away and paying me to
right.
Which is why you give them 4 weeks so you can get past the whole COBRA requirement part. Josh and I had this talk this week.
Tim has been planning this for several years.
No, I've done this in the past, and when you give notice, they have to pay you for the duration. When they accept your notice, they have to pay you for said duration. So if you give notice in the first week, and you would have to pick up overpay for the rest of the month, you know, for your next employer, you just give them 4 weeks notice. They got to pay you for them by law.
Then
And with that note,
you do like I did, and I gave my notice, and we talked about doing 4 weeks, and they said, yeah, we need you for all 4 of them, and if we could extend it a little further, we ended up doing that. It ended up being a great transition away, and they actually hired me back as a consultant later on because it was skills that they needed. So there's something to be said for doing a clean cut and making everybody happy, no bridges burned.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Don't burn the bridges.
The community as a whole, you never know who the douchebag who you're working for today could be the next hot douchebag for some startup company that you go to work for tomorrow. I mean, you just don't know.
Or that you want as a customer, that you need as a customer.
Correct. That too. I mean, life is too short to burn bridges, really. As much as you want to just go out there and just say you're a friggin' idiot, you don't know shit. I'm talking about myself, I knew at this time.
Fuck you. Fuck you. You're cool.
Jim, you're cool.
I'm out.
I'm out.
Tim, do you even have the energy to light a match?
I thought that was his avatar.
Dude, I think he died.
Somebody get the paddles.
Yeah, pretty much.
Call Joni. Get the paddles.
Hey, Granddad, wake up.
All right, children of the corn. I think
It's been a very long day.
We've prattled on long enough. It's been an hour and 41 minutes, or basically an hour and a half. And I want to thank everybody.
Less the time it took for you to get it started.
You know, I had everything started. I just did not have light, dude. That was my challenge.
You did move the camera, though.
Yes, you were not fighting Google this time. You were fighting your house.
I was fighting the Earth, right? So,
Barack Obama light bulbs, apparently.
Goddamn fucking government light bulb. Random bastards. Who can see with like 12 watts, whatever the fuck those goddamn curly Q, toxic death light bulbs can produce?
Wow.
That's what I'm working with.
Wow.
Drop one of those fucking light bulbs. Run for the hills.
I have 800 watts of halogen light in this room.
Gabriel loves hash
Of
brown.
course you do.
Because it's Nevada. It's like the glow from the spaceship that's landed out.
No. This is New Hampshire.
It's Massachusetts. Or that
This
one.
is New Hampshire.
The stairway that goes to nowhere.
Yes, the stairway that goes to nowhere.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
There we are.
Dude, how many fucking texts are you gonna send me, girl?
47.
Fag.
I love you so
The
much.
lights up there.
You guys can kiss a little bit.
I'm going to mute everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight and imparting your stories and your knowledge and your
I haven't come yet.
phrasing.
Okay.
Phrasing.
That's not even a phrasing. That's a direct quote.
Wow.
So,
Hey, Andy,
this wasn't the STEM meetup that I thought I was coming to.
Do you work for a hyperconverged company too?
Oh.
Saturday Night Live deep what?
You guys are horrible people. All right.
We try.
I can never figure out how to stop this damn thing when the stupid camera thing happens. God damn it. Keep talking.
So you are fighting. You are fighting the Google.
Yeah, what's going on with the camera?
Somebody's taking pictures.
Of whom?
Jesus,
Of
Amy.
everybody.
Amy, fucking stop already. Good job.
I'm staging a murder scene on my side.
It's such a good prank. That is
Okay,
very
Amy.
fast. I have good fast reflexes.
Okay, Amy.
So why is it that Damian Carlson is on this call, but he's done nothing but text people individually throughout the entire call? He's the most antisocial. He must be drunk and is worried about getting fired.
Because every time I speak, someone else is speaking. So I just like do the sideband thing to be weird. Awesome. Banta just drew mustaches on us.
Damien, I mean, Gabe, are you even capable of stopping this thing?
I'm trying to figure out how.
God, this is going to be on the recording. Jeremiah's playing with Legos.
No, those aren't Legos.
Tim is playing cards with his dog. Jabont looks like Steve Jobs. Amy's still the devil, and Julie still thinks he's an angel.
If I could figure out how to turn off the camera portion.
Wow.
Jim is just smiling.
Oh,
This
hey,
is the
I
worst
figured it out.
meeting
Check it
ever.
out, dude.
Damien's still drinking Tito's.
All right. Hey, hang on real quick. Good
We're
night.
still live, though.
Still says live.